Hello and welcome to the Path to Freedom podcast, a weekly podcast with the intention to inspire, empower, and uplift us all to develop a healing consciousness that we, that is you and me, may forever allow for greater and grander versions and expressions of who and what we are to emerge with ease, grace, and spiritual dignity. My name is Daniel Roquillo, and I am your host. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Path to Freedom podcast with me, Daniel Roquillo, a weekly podcast that is about wholeness and freedom and wellness and peace and love and harmony and how we can forever allow for greater and grander expressions of who and what we are to emerge, how we can be of greater service, how we can be greater beneficial presences on this planet. How we can allow that inherent and intrinsic light to radiate out from us. How we can up-level and expand to higher levels of consciousness. This week's episode is about surrendering. The topic for today is listen and obey. And if you remember from previous episodes, we've been talking about the three pillars of a healing consciousness. That a healing consciousness is based upon three pillars. The first one would be intention or vision, which is where we set a direction. We articulate and describe to the laws, the sacred laws, what we desire, where we want to go, in which heading we want to go. So that's one pillar. I shouldn't call it the first pillar, because this is a dynamic process. It's not linear. So it's not like one is more important or comes before the others, but one pillar is intention. Another pillar is willingness, that we need to have the willingness to do what we need to do the inner work necessary to release and let go of the small and limited, of that which no longer serves us. That we need to have the willingness to change, the willingness to grow, the willingness to expand. And then a third pillar is surrender, which is where we kind of like get out of the way. We let God or Spirit have its way with us. And this particular episode is first and foremost about the third pillar, about surrendering. And so the title of this episode, the topic for today is listen and obey. And of course, when I say listen, what I'm referring to is that we are to pay attention, that we are to tune in to that still small voice within us, the voice of intuition, the voice of God, the voice of Spirit, that is forever speaking and whispering words of wisdom and guidance to us, forever leading and guiding and moving us along our particular path, our unique and beautiful path. So that's what's in store for today. As always, though, before we get into the episode and before we get into that conversation, let's ground ourselves, let's center ourselves, let's have a moment of stillness and meditation, followed by a moment of prayer. And so in this moment, I invite you to make yourself comfortable. I invite you to put a smile on your face. I invite you to tap ever so gently in between your eyebrows, that pineal gland, that first eye, activating the eye behind the eye and the ear behind the ear. I invite you to close your eyes. I invite you to place your hands in your lap, palms facing upward, thumb and middle finger touching. And also, I invite you to take on the feeling tone that this is the very first time that you are meditating. As we have been talking about before, also, each and every single moment is a fresh start, a new beginning. And so regardless of how many times, how many years you may have been meditating, this version and this expression of who and what you are is a brand new version, a brand new expression. And so this is the very first time. So any and all previous experiences with meditation, we release and let go of. And as we turn our attention toward our breath, we allow our bodies to relax. For each breath we take, we give our bodies permission to relax even more. Keeping our attention on our breathing, allowing the body to breathe, to do the breathing for us. We don't have to breathe, but the body is infinite intelligence. And so it knows how to breathe. And as we enter into the meditation, we do so with intention. And you may articulate it or frame it in whatever way feels inspiring and appealing to you. But we want to set an intention for the meditation, and my intention for this meditation is to wake up to who and what God is, and to my absolute oneness with it. So that's my intention for sitting. To have a spiritual realization. And as we become still, we keep our attention fixed and focused on our breathing. And should a thought snag our attention away, we gently and lovingly bring it back to our breath. And we begin again. As we move deeper and deeper into the nowness of this moment, we remind ourselves that the purpose of meditation is not to have a sublime experience. It's not escaping the body or escaping anything, but it's merely to exercise our attention muscle, becoming aware that we have and we experience thoughts and emotions and physical sensations, things happening in the body, itches, and perhaps even pain or aches. And through our practice of meditation, we learn and we realize that we are not our thoughts, we are not our emotions, we are not that physical sensation, but we are the observer of those experiences. And so the purpose of meditation is to allow us and to empower us and to guide us to realize that we are the consciousness that is aware of experiences. We are not our experiences, but we are aware of our experiences. And where is our attention? Be attentive of your intention and be attentive of your body breathing. And where is your attention? And in a moment, as I move into prayer, I invite you to remain with your eyes closed open, available, receptive to catch the vibration and the frequency of the prayer, allowing the prayer to move you into a higher level of frequency, a higher vibration. And so in this moment, how grateful I am. How grateful I am for this moment, for this high and holy moment, this moment of peace, this moment of harmony, of joy, of love, wholeness, abundance. How grateful I am that I get to come back to this moment, that I get to meditate, that I get to pray. How fortunate and how blessed are we that we get to be still, that we get to withdraw from the world for a moment and release and let go of all those small and limited thought forms and thought patterns and opinions and point of views, perceptions. How grateful I am for this podcast, for this episode, for the technology that allows this to be. And how grateful I am for your participation in this, your co-creation in this. If it wasn't for you, this would not be what it is. And so I'm grateful for you, for your choosing to join me here. And so from this space of gratitude, I recognize that Spirit is all there is. That Spirit is omnipresent and infinite. There's nothing outside of Spirit, but Spirit is everywhere. That Spirit is omniscient, all-knowing, which means that Spirit knows all there is to know. All-knowing, all-wise. That Spirit. That Spirit is eternal, the same yesterday, today, and forever. The Spirit cannot and will not ever change up on itself. It cannot diminish itself. It cannot contradict itself. It cannot divide itself into parts. But wherever Spirit is, all of Spirit is. All of the love, all of the peace, all of the joy, all of the harmony, wholeness, abundance, intelligence, creativity, beauty, bliss, ecstasy, expansion, progression. All of that is fully present in every space and place in all of creation. And this I am one with. I and God are one. Spirit is I am. And I am forever sourced, fueled, and funded, forever sustained and maintained, forever and eternally guided and moved and led, not by Spirit, but because I am Spirit. I am God expressing itself in us and through me in a beautiful, magnificent, powerful way. And as I know that this is true for me, I know it's the truth for you. That wherever you are, Spirit is expressing itself in us and through you. That wherever you are, abundance is expressing itself in us and through you. Wholeness expressing itself in us and through you. Intelligence, beauty, harmony, love, peace expressing itself in us and through you. And as we all are unique and perfect emanations of God, of Spirit, nothing is missing us. but everything we need to take that next step, to allow for that next great and grand version of who and what we are, we have in every single moment of every single day, forever, eternally sourced, fueled, and funded, sustained, and maintained. And as I know that the will of God is that that all of creation move into forever greater and grander expressions of itself. I know that Spirit is forever for us, at the back of us, that everything is working for our good. I know it, I feel it, I accept it, I give thanks for it, I allow it to be. Truly, all is well. All is well. And as we raise our vibration to the level of knowing and feeling that all is well, the kingdom of God is at hand. That's where we live. We bring heaven to earth. And the doors of the infinite storehouse of good opens wide up for us to enjoy. Infinite possibilities right where we are. Endless possibilities right where we are. All is well, all is well, all is well. And so peace, be still. And as I release the word, I do so fully, fully, fully surrendered to the word. I need not hold on to anything, but I can let everything go. So I say, thy will be done, fully knowing that it is done. In the mind of God, it is done, it is done, it is done. And so I release the word. I give thanks for the word spoken. I let it be, and so it is. Amen. Yes. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back to this episode that is about the still small voice, the voice of intuition, the voice of God, call it whatever you want to call it. But that inner faculty that guides and moves and leads us forever onward, forever upward. And I think I've mentioned this before, but I'm in the process of creating an online course, another online course about developing a healing consciousness. And as I was writing on one of the lessons yesterday, in the opening of that lesson, I described how my life has changed over the last 10 years or so, and how I have so implicitly learned to trust this inner voice, this still small voice, to the point where I'm not even aware of tuning into it. I'm not even aware of making the choice to let it guide me. And it has guided and led me in such a beautiful way, especially these last, 3-4 years. I have made some, what on the surface may have looked like illogical and perhaps even stupid choices that have not been grounded in what's reasonable or what's logical at all. And so much good has come out of these choices and those choices that I've made. And it has not been in any way, shape, or form me figuring out or intellectualizing or planning anything. But I've gone with the flow. I've I've caught the guidance as I've received it, and I've gone with it. And so this is a little do you say prologue? Perhaps you do. Foreword is perhaps a better word. This is a little foreword to this episode that is about learning to tap into, learning to tune into that still small voice. Because that voice, even though it speaks in language and in a way that we all can understand, it speaks to us all differently. And it took me, I think I've shared this before, but it took me a number of years actually before I learned to discern how this voice speaks to me. One of my earliest teacher, Mr. Bob Proctor, he spoke of seeing with my mind what is to come and what actions to take. For him, it came visually. For me, it doesn't. It doesn't come visually at all. At all. But to me, this inner voice speaks through an inner knowing. I just know. And it was it a couple of days ago, I believe? And our son, he was having a hard time. He'd been home from school on spring break, and then he was off from school because he was homesick for a week. So he was, and this was at the end of that week, and he was very so anxious and a little antsy, and he had all this energy built up within him, but there was no outlet. He was not allowed to go play with his friends as he had been sick for a week, and he was not even allowed to go outside as he was not fully recovered yet. And we wanted him to be able to go back to school on Monday. So he was all balled up inside. And he started teasing and picking on his little sister. And as I heard that, immediately I knew what to do to help him out of it. And it was not a matter of me, as I said, it was not a matter of me figuring out or discussing it with my wife or anything, but I just knew what he needed in that moment. I knew what he needed. I knew how I could serve him, how I could help him. And so I went up to him. And I explained what I suggested we do. And he was on board, and it made him very happy. And the rest of the day was fine. No argument, nothing between him and his sister. And that's how this still small voice works. And this is just a small things. Then I made huge choices, like leaving employments with nothing to fall back on, just because this still small voice told me to. I started websites, I started this podcast, I've done a bunch of things simply because I've learned, and I am so grateful. And this I wrote too in that lesson, that out of all of the immense blessings that I have received over the last 10 years, and out of all the beautiful and powerful things that I've learned, perhaps one of the most things that I'm grateful for Perhaps one of the greatest blessings that I've received over the last decade has been to tune in and to trust this still small voice, the voice of Spirit speaking through me, guiding, leading, moving me. Always, always, always. And for the purpose of that lesson, I was trying to think of a choice I had made that did not turn out well. And I couldn't. And I still cannot think of a choice I've made where I've tuned in, where I've caught the guidance that has not turned out beautifully. As we said, Spirit is omniscient. It knows everything. It knows all there is to know. And to God, there is no such thing as time, but everything is just now to God. So God, from the highest vantage point, knows all, sees all. And obviously, as Spirit guides us, this is what we are utilizing. This is what we are tapping into. This all-knowing, all-seeing consciousness of Spirit. So when we choose to listen, how could we possibly go wrong? I mean, how could we possibly go wrong? Granted, obviously, some of the choices that I made did not turn out the way I thought they should turn out. But they all worked out beautifully. Much greater, much better than I ever thought possible, than I could have ever imagined, that I could have ever designed. So I really, really, really want to urge you, if you have not yet learned to tap into that still small voice, to tune into it, to hear it, to listen to it, I really, really, really encourage you to do so, because it is magnificent. It is so powerful. I sometimes get asked, well, how do I discern or distinguish between this voice of the Spirit and the voice of the ego? And it's really quite simple. All we need to do is to pay attention to what the voice is saying. The frequency of the voice, the energy, the vibration of the voice. The ego operating under the influence or under the perception that I am not enough and there is not enough. That's where the ego comes from all of the time, from a place of lack, limitation, and separation. And so the ego is constantly projecting fear and worry and doubt, anxiety onto our lives. Always be speaking of, how can I get more? How can I acquire more? Or how can I protect what I already have? What's mine? The ego speaks of I, me, and mine. It makes comparisons. It drops borders. This is mine, and that's yours. This is ours, and that's theirs. That's the voice of the ego. That's how the ego speaks to us. And then we have this still small voice. And also, the ego is oftentimes very agitated, fitful. And the still small voice is just that. It's a still, small, quiet, serene, tranquil nudging from within. that knows nothing of limitations, that knows nothing of lack, that knows nothing of separation. He knows only love and peace and joy and harmony. He knows only expansion. He knows only infinite possibilities. And so it's from that space and place that this guidance comes. So listen. But the thing is, in order to listen, we need to be still. We need to be quiet. And this is my guess, but knowing humanity and our preoccupation with our mind and our thoughts, as many people do not have had the practice of meditation where they learn and come into the realization that we are not our thoughts, but we are the observer and the watcher of our thoughts and emotions and experiences. And so, as the purpose of meditation is not to quiet or to mute our thoughts, but simply create a gap, a distance, a space in between us. And when I say us, I mean our spiritual nature and these thought forms and emotions and sensations and experiences. But for an individual who is so identified with whatever is going through their minds, how can they possibly hear anything else? It's like having earplugs way in our ears, trying to hear and walking on a busy street, trying to hear someone across the street whispering to us. I mean, it's just not possible. So we need to learn to be still. We need to learn to be quiet and to create that space in between us and our thoughts, us and our thinking, which is one of the great benefits of meditation, that we create this space. And then obviously it's a matter of figuring out, learning to discern how that still small voice speaks to us as unique individuals. It may come as a feeling, as a vision, as a sensation, kinesthetic, as a sound, as an inner knowing as it comes to me, and perhaps in other ways as well. But we need to, as individuals, we need to learn to discern how that voice speaks to us. And then obviously the second part, as the topic for today is listen and obey. We also need to learn to trust it. It's not enough to simply hear the guidance and then go on about our business. That's not enough. But we need to catch it, we need to heed it, we need to follow it, we need to obey it. That it can guide and move and lead us. Or we will be like a boat on the ocean on its way into a harbor. And this boat has been met up with a pilot who has come out to guide the boat in, or the ship in. But unless the captain of the ship chooses to follow the pilot does no good. If the captain chooses to go his own way, like here in Sweden, you have this archipelago, which is beautiful, but it can be a bit treacherous. There are places where the water is very shallow, even way out. And so unless the captain knows exactly where to go, it's very easy for him to hit ground. So we want to not only listen, but we want to obey. We want to learn. And this is a process. I realized this and I remember this, that when I first learned to tune into the still small voice, it took me, I don't know how long, but it took time for me to learn to trust it. Because oftentimes this guidance is not logical. It has nothing to do with reason. As I said, Spirit knows everything, sees everything. So Spirit knows the best way for us forward. That has nothing to do with what I, as a human individual, deem and perceive as logical or reasonable, which is based upon what I've learned on my few short years here on this planet this time around. So oftentimes, and perhaps the greatest or best example to illustrate this is this is a few years back now, 2-3 years back or so. And I think I've shared this story before, but I'll do it again for the purpose of this conversation. I was working at a treatment center for young kids. I'd been working there for a couple of years and I loved it. It was very, very, I loved the kids. I loved my colleagues. Everyone was very loving and kind. It was a very loving and kind treatment center. But then I was offered a job at another treatment center with a more spiritual approach. And so they meditated, they ate vegetarian food, and had a spiritual leaning. And I saw great potential in taking this job, so I accepted it. I left the first treatment center and started working at the other. And after, I don't know, a couple of weeks, I realized that this is not the perfect fit I thought it was going to be. It wasn't. It wasn't. And so, guided by Spirit, I chose to quit. I worked for a month. But I had nothing to fall back on. I didn't want to go back to my old work, so I had nothing to fall back on. But still I quit. And what emerged out of this was me going back into having my own business, which I would not have had I stayed at the first place. So this, what seemed very tumultuous and what seemed chaotic and what would have seemed a very foolish choice to make, me leaving my new job after only a month. Turned out so beautifully. And I would not be here where I am today had I not listened. It would have been so easy to go with my intellectual mind. And had I asked anyone, now I chose not to, and I'm going to go into that also. But had I followed my intellectual mind, who continuously told me that I had to stay at this work, this particular place of employment, until something else showed up, because we had bills to pay, we had to buy food, we had to, buy clothes and school stuff for our kids. And how the heck was I going to be able to support us and provide for us if I didn't have a paycheck, if I didn't have a job? So these are the things that my surface mind kept telling me. But I knew that I had to make this choice. It was the right choice. And even though I couldn't see how things were going to work out, I knew that they would. Because God would not lead me into disaster. But the only way God leads me and guides me and moves me is to greater and greater and greater and greater and greater levels of consciousness, greater levels of expression. That's how and where God leads me. So if that still small voice tells me that everything's going to be all right, by God, I am listening. I am trusting. I am obeying. Which leads me to another point. We listen and we obey, but in order to be able to obey, we need to stop asking others what we are to do, what choices we are to make, which turns we are to make or not make. Because most others, unless they're at a high level of consciousness, most others rely fully on the appearances, on the world of appearances. If they can't see it, it's not real. That's how most people live. They have to see in order to believe. But these laws that we're working with here, they don't work that way. They work the other way around. When we believe, then we will see. And if we don't believe, we will not see. Like these laws can be summed up in a few beautiful words. It is done unto us as we believe. I think that's from scripture. I don't know, but I think so. And what I've been guided and prone to say, if I can feel it, I will see it. And there's a short story to illustrate this. It goes kind of like this, and I may be not remembering it correctly. I may be rephrasing it. There's another word, but I couldn't get it. I may be rephrasing it, but it goes, the ego says, show me God and I will trust you. And God says, trust me and I will show you. And that's how these laws work. We need to take the first step. When we believe, when we feel that something's going to work out, when we know, that's when it shows up. It's not going to show up unless we make the leap of faith. And I am not, please hear this, I am not encouraging you to jump off a building or stand in front of a train and simply think that if only I believe I'm going to survive, that's going to happen. That's not what I'm saying. But we can work against the loss, or we can work with the loss. It is done unto us as we believe. If we feel it, we will see it. That's the principle of these laws. The principle of them. So it's imperative, it's so important that we not go to others for advice, because most others don't know what they are talking about. They live under the aegis of the ego. They live from the space of fear, worry, doubt, anxiety. They live from the perception of lack and limitation. And if that is their chronic belief, if that is their chronic vibration, that is what will come into their experience. These laws, they're impersonal and they are immutable. They don't care who we are, where we come from. They don't care why we are, what we have done. All they respond to is our vibration, our feeling tone, what we feel. That is what they respond to. And so there needs to be a level of trust. And I'm not saying also, and please hear this too, I am not saying that every time we experience fear, we are to stop from following our guidance. There have been many, many, many times where I've been experiencing intense fear on the surface, but yet I have followed the guidance in spite of the fear. The fear may have been telling me not to make a certain choice or go off in a particular direction, but the still small voice has guided me to, has told me to. And so even though I've been experiencing fear, I have gone, I have followed, I have obeyed that still small voice. And hey, I'm still here. I am still here. And there's more here of me than ever before. My God, there's more here of me than ever before. And my life is, our life, me and my family, it's beyond anything we could have imagined only a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago. So we certainly can evoke these sacred laws to work for us, even though we are experiencing fear, if we choose to simply observe the fear, not let the fear run us. But most people are run by fear. Most people are run by fear. And we do not want to take advice. We do not want to ask advice from anyone who's run by fear. Because the only advice they will ever get or give, the only advice they will ever give is based on fear, is coming from fear. So in this moment, for those of you who may not have developed this conscious contact and connection with this still small voice, let's move into a little bit of practice. So in this moment, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes, and I'm going to ask a question. And then I'll ask you to be still and see if you can catch the answer. If you do catch the answer, that's wonderful. If you don't catch the answer, please, please, please don't take it as a failure. Please, please, please don't judge yourself or condemn yourself. But this is a learning process. It's a learning process, just like learning to play the piano or learning a new language or learning how to walk. We oftentimes don't get it right the first time. But through repetition, continuous, constant repetition, we gradually get better and better and better. And this is nothing different. No different at all. No different at all. All right, so I invite you to close your eyes. And all right. Take a couple of deep breaths. And we're going to combine, Spirit told me to combine this exercise with the intention practice. So I guess it's intention setting time. We've apparently come to that point. So I invite you to ask yourself, what's my intention for the next coming week? And for those of you who are new to this podcast, this is a regular thing in each episode where we set a direction for the next 7 days, for the next coming week, by asking and catching an intention. And so I invite you to close your eyes, take these couple of deep breaths, conscious breaths, and simply ask in stillness, what is my intention for this next week? And I invite you to listen for, don't try to figure it out, don't create an intention, but listen, listen, listen. Be attentive, be alert, and listen. Allow the intention to come to you. Allow it to reveal itself to you. So that's one. And the second thing I want you to do is pay attention as to how it is revealed to you. Does it come as a sound, a voice, a feeling, a sensation, an inner knowing, a vision? How does it come to you? So that'll expand the practice into also learning to discern and become aware of how guidance comes to you as a unique and perfect individual. So I'm going to be quiet now. I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to give us all a few moments to just be still and catch our intention. And welcome back. Let's deal with the intention first. As always, I invite you to grab a piece of paper and a pen and write your intention down. Perhaps place it somewhere where you know that you will look at it, where you will see it every day, a number of times every day, but at least where you will see it continuously so that it stays with you. So that's the one thing. Another thing I want you to do with the intention is to, whenever you catch guidance as to how you can act on this intention, I invite you to allow your intention, and I invite you to allow your insights to move you into that action. Go with it, obey it, as we've been talking about. Do it. It may not be what you used to do. It may be outside of your present comfort zone, what you feel comfortable with. It may be something you've never done before, but please allow it to move you into action, because this is how growth happens. This is exactly how we allow for that greater and grander version and expression of who and what we are to emerge. When we are right at the edge of our present paradigm, of our current expression, and when we push past that edge, a new expression has been born. So that's number 2. And then I invite you to come back to and be aware of how you caught your attention. Simply observe. You don't have to do anything with it, but simply observe how the still small voice speaks to you. All right. So I thank you once again. I'm going to bless us out in a minute. I thank you for your participation. I thank you for joining me. I thank you for choosing to come here, to hang out here in this field, rather than, I don't know, sit in a bar or watching TV, or, I'm not saying that any of those things are bad. I'm just saying that this, from an evolutionary standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint, brings more value than being in a bar watching TV. Probably could. So I'm grateful for your presence. So I'm going to bless us out, and I invite you to close your eyes. And so how in this moment, my God, how grateful I am for this podcast and for God who inspired me and guided me and led me and moved me to create this podcast. And I'm so grateful for my willingness to be obedient to the guidance that I catch. I'm so grateful for my willingness to listen in the first place. I'm so grateful for my willingness to surrender, to allow God to have its way with me, for my willingness to get out of the way, that God may have full sway over me and my life. And I'm so grateful for your participation, for your co-creation, for your choosing to stand in love and light. The planet needs it more than ever. There's a shift happening, and more than ever, we who choose this, who choose the spiritual path, need to do the work to midwife the new. The new is being born, but it's not going to born itself. But we need to be there, supporting the new, lifting the new, calling forth the new. Give it permission to emerge in through and as us. And for your choosing to do just that, I am so grateful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so grateful that we recognize the infinitude and eternality of spirit. That we choose to move deeper and higher into the consciousness and the realization that spirit is everywhere, never separated from anything. But spirit is the creator of all of creation, and spirit is all of creation. There is no duality in spirit. There is only spirit. There is only God. And as we all are one with this presence, with this love, with this harmony and joy, abundance, intelligence, creativity, all of that is where we are. All of that is the essence of spirit, and the spirit is who and what we are. That is the essence of who and what we are. We're missing nothing, we're lacking nothing, but everything we need we have. And we find it as we choose to come back to the nowness of this moment, as we choose to step out of time, out of past, out of present, out of the future, and come back to the nowness of this moment. This is where we make ourselves open and available to commune and connect with the Spirit. This is where we make ourselves open and available for Spirit to flow through us fully and freely, for all of that which Spirit is to flow through us fully and freely. So something wonderful is happening right now, in this very moment. Something wonderful is happening in all of our lives. All of our lives. Everything is working for our good. Everything is for us. Nothing is against us. All is well. All is well. All is well. And so peace, be still. Peace, be still. Anything and everything that has heretofore obstructed, obscured, hindered wholeness and abundance and beauty and love and joy, peace, harmony from gushing into our lives, into our experience, is now being dissolved, transmuted, transformed into the nothingness from which it came. And as I release the word, fully surrendered to the word, I say, thy will be done. And I know that this is the will of God, and it is done. Our minds clear, our hearts pure, our bodies vibrant, whole, vital, healthy, whole. Yes, 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 yes. It is. It is, it is, it is. And so be it. Amen. Welcome back. Welcome back and goodbye. Until the next time, whenever you choose to tune in, it's always the nowness of this moment. It's always now. So until the next now, I bless your day. And I do bless your way. Namaste. You have been listening to an episode of the Path to Freedom podcast with me, Daniel Roqueo. I invite you to stay tuned for more episodes. If you have any questions or comments or just want to get more inspiration and empowerment, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. I also invite you to visit my website, danielroqueo.com. I bless your day and I bless your way, you beautiful, wonderful being.